I was driving back to Portland from my ex-girlfriend's place in Bend when my dog started whining in the back seat. It was New Year's Eve around 9 p.m., and I just spent the worst afternoon of my life watching her pack up the last of my stuff from her apartment. We'd been together 3 years, and it ended over something stupid that turned into something bigger, the way these things do. My dog, Cooper, a German Shepherd mix I'd gotten as a puppy 2 years ago, had been with me through the whole relationship. Sarah had loved him almost as much as I did, and watching her say goodbye to him in the parking lot had been worse than the actual breakup. I was taking Highway 26 back, the long route through the mountains, because I couldn't handle the idea of sitting in traffic on I-84. The roads were empty. Most people were already at whatever party they were going to, not driving through the middle of nowhere in the dark. Cooper whined again, louder this time, and stood up in the back seat. "All right, buddy," I said. "I'll pull over." The next turnout I saw was a small clearing off the highway, barely big enough for 2 cars. There were no lights out here, just my headlights cutting through the darkness and the faint outline of trees. I let Cooper out and he immediately trotted toward the tree line. I followed him, staying close to the car, hands shoved in my jacket pockets against the cold. That's when I heard it. A sharp whistle, like someone calling a dog. It came from deep in the forest. Cooper's ears perked up and he started walking toward the sound. I called him back, but he ignored me, picking up his pace.
"Cooper, come here, now!"
He broke into a run. I didn't think, I just went after him, pulling out my phone and turning on the flashlight. The beam barely penetrated the darkness between the trees, but I could hear Cooper crashing through the underbrush ahead of me.
"Cooper!"
Another whistle, closer this time. Then another, from a different direction. Someone was out there. Multiple people. I ran faster, my phone light bouncing wildly as I tried to keep up with the sound of Cooper moving through the woods. Branches whipped against my face and I nearly tripped over a fallen log, but I kept going. Then I heard Cooper yelp. It was sharp and sudden, the kind of sound that makes your stomach drop. I found him maybe 20 yards deeper into the woods, standing rigid, hackles raised. He was staring at something I couldn't see.
"Cooper, here, right now!"
He didn't move. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not running, just walking steadily through the trees, coming from multiple directions. I grabbed Cooper's collar and started pulling him back the way we'd come. He resisted at first, still staring into the darkness. But then something changed. His whole body went tense, and suddenly he was scrambling backward, nearly knocking me over. We ran. I didn't look back. I just focused on not losing my phone, not tripping, not letting go of Cooper's collar. Behind us, the footsteps got faster, branches snapping, multiple sets of feet. I could see my car's headlights through the trees ahead when Cooper suddenly pulled away from me and veered left. I tried to grab him but missed, and then something hit me from behind. Not hard enough to knock me down, but enough to send me stumbling forward. I spun around, phone light swinging, and saw a figure standing about 10 feet away. It was a man, I think. He was wearing dark clothes and his face was covered with something. A ski mask or bandana. I couldn't tell. He wasn't moving, just standing there watching me. Then I heard Cooper snarling somewhere to my left. I ran toward the sound and found him backed against a tree, teeth bared, facing 2 more figures. These 2 were closer, maybe 6 feet from him, and one of them was holding something. A stick or a pipe. I didn't think about what I was doing. I just screamed and charged at them, waving my phone light and yelling incoherently. It worked. They stepped back and Cooper bolted past them toward the car. I followed, running as fast as I could. We burst out of the tree line together. I practically threw Cooper into the back seat and jumped in the driver's side, locking the doors immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see those figures emerge from the woods. But there was nothing. I started the car and floored it, fishtailing slightly as I pulled back onto the highway. I drove for maybe 10 miles before I noticed Cooper wasn't moving in the back seat.
Cooper?
He whimpered. I pulled over at the next lit area I could find, a closed gas station with a single overhead light. When I opened the back door, I saw blood on the seat. Cooper was lying down and there was a gash on his side, just behind his front leg. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding steadily. Oh, Jesus, Coop, what did they do? I didn't have a first aid kit. I didn't have anything. I pulled off my jacket and pressed it against the wound, and Cooper whined but didn't pull away. I called the closest emergency vet I could find on my phone. They said they were open until 11 p.m. and gave me the address. It was 20 minutes away. I drove with one hand on the wheel and the other reaching back to keep pressure on Cooper's side. He stayed quiet the whole way, just breathing heavily. The vet took him back immediately. They said the wound looked like it had been made by something sharp, a knife maybe, or a piece of metal. They cleaned it and gave him antibiotics and put in 3 stitches. The vet asked what happened and I told her the truth. She got quiet, then said there had been 2 similar incidents in the past month, both involving dogs being injured on that stretch of highway. She said one of the other owners reported seeing people in the woods and that the police thought it might be some kind of organized dogfighting recruitment. They'd lure dogs into the woods with whistles, try to take them, and if the owners followed, they'd attack. I filed a report with the police that night from the vet's office. I gave them the exact location of the turnout and described what I'd seen. They said they'd increase patrols in the area. I never heard if they caught anyone. I got to Portland around 1 a.m., long after midnight, long after everyone had finished celebrating. Cooper slept on my bed that night, and I kept one hand on his side, feeling him breathe. I don't drive that highway anymore. I take I-84, even if there's traffic, even if it adds an hour to the trip. And I never let Cooper off leash in the woods. Ever. My girlfriend Alexis and I had been dating for about 6 months when New Year's Eve came around. We'd met through mutual friends, and she was always getting invited to parties through people she knew from college. On December 30th, she got a text from someone named Becca asking if we wanted to come to a New Year's party in Brooklyn. Alexis said Becca was a girl she'd been friendly with sophomore year, but hadn't talked to much since graduation. The address Becca sent was for a building in an industrial part of Brooklyn I'd never been to. When Alexis asked for more details, Becca said it was just a warehouse party and that it would be exclusive. I wasn't thrilled about it, but Alexis really wanted to go. She said it would be more interesting than the usual crowded bar scene. We took an Uber there around 10:30 p.m. The driver dropped us off in front of what looked like a converted factory building. There were a few other people walking toward the entrance, mostly couples, all dressed up nice like they were going to an upscale event. A guy in a black suit was standing at the door checking a list on an iPad. When we walked up, he asked for our names. "We're guests of Becca," Alexis said. He scrolled through his list, found something, and nodded. "10th floor, elevators are to the left." We walked into a lobby that had been renovated but still looked industrial. Exposed brick, concrete floors, modern lighting. The elevator was one of those freight elevators with the metal cage door. When we got to the 10th floor, the doors opened to what looked like a legitimate party. The space was huge, with high ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. There were maybe 50 people there, all well-dressed, holding cocktails. Music was playing, but not too loud. People were mingling in small groups. It looked normal. Alexis spotted Becca across the room and waved. Becca came over and hugged her, then introduced herself to me. She was friendly, chatty, seemed genuine. "I'm so glad you guys came," she said. "Help yourselves to drinks. The bar's over there." We got drinks and started walking around. The crowd was a weird mix. Some people looked like they were in their 20s, but there were others who seemed much older, late 40s, maybe 50s. Everyone was well dressed, like this was some kind of networking event. After about 20 minutes, I started noticing something odd. Every time we tried to leave a conversation or move to a different area, someone would intercept us, like they were keeping us in a specific part of the room. I mentioned it to Alexis, and she laughed it off. People are just being friendly. But then I noticed something else. Near the elevators, there were now two guys in suits standing there, arms crossed. They weren't letting anyone leave. I watched as a couple tried to head toward the elevator, and one of the suit guys stepped in front of them, shaking his head and gesturing back toward the party. "Alexis," I said quietly, "look at the elevators." She looked, and I saw her expression change. "Maybe they're just controlling the flow," she said, but she didn't sound convinced. We kept mingling, but I was on edge now. I checked my phone. 11:40 p.m. And that's when a woman in her 40s approached us. She was dressed impeccably, holding a glass of wine, and had this sharp, calculated smile. "You two are new," she said. It wasn't a question. "Friends of Becca's," Alexis said. The woman's smile didn't waver. "How wonderful. Tell me, what do you both do for work?" I told her I was in IT. Alexis said she worked in marketing. The woman's eyes lit up. "Marketing? How interesting. What kind of salary are we talking about?" The question was so direct it caught us both off guard. Alexis stammered out a vague answer and the woman nodded, then excused herself. "That was weird," Alexis whispered. I looked around the room more carefully now. People weren't just mingling. They were being interviewed. I watched as other well-dressed older people moved from group to group, asking questions, taking notes on their phones. And the people our age, the ones who'd been invited like us, they all looked increasingly uncomfortable. I checked the elevators again, still guarded. "We need to leave," I said. "How?" Alexis asked. "They're blocking the elevator." I scanned the room and spotted an exit sign near the back, above a door that looked like it led to a stairwell. "There," I said, nodding toward it. We started casually making our way in that direction, trying not to draw attention. We were maybe 20 feet from the door when Becca appeared in front of us. "Where are you going?" she asked. Her friendly demeanor was gone. "Bathroom," Alexis said. "Bathrooms are that way." Becca pointed in the opposite direction. "We're actually gonna head out," I said, not backing down. Becca's expression hardened. "You can't leave yet. It's not midnight." "We're tired," I said. "But thanks for the invite." I took Alexis's hand and tried to move past Becca, but she grabbed Alexis's other arm. "You need to stay," Becca said, her voice low and urgent. "Just until midnight, please." I yanked Alexis away, and we started walking faster toward the exit. Behind us, I heard Becca say something into her phone. We reached the door and pushed through into the stairwell. As soon as we were inside, we heard shouting from behind us and heavy footsteps. "Run," I said. We flew down the stairs, taking them two at a time. The footsteps behind us were getting closer. I could hear at least two people chasing us. We burst through the door on the ground floor and ran straight for the exit. The guy who'd checked us in earlier tried to step in front of us, but I pushed past him and we sprinted out onto the street. We didn't stop running until we were 3 blocks away. Then we ducked into a 24-hour deli and I called 911. The operator took down all the information: the address, the description of what we'd seen, the fact that people were being held against their will. She said she'd dispatch officers immediately. We waited in the deli for half an hour, then walked to a busier street and got an Uber home. We didn't go back to check what happened. The next day, I called the police non-emergency line to follow up. They said they'd responded to the address but found the building empty. No party, no people. Nothing. I checked Becca's Instagram. Her account was gone. Alexis tried texting her. The number was disconnected. We never figured out what that party actually was. But my guess? Some kind of recruitment operation. They were interviewing people, figuring out who had money, who had skills, who might be vulnerable. What they planned to do after midnight, I don't want to know. We spent the rest of that New Year's at my apartment, door locked, not answering texts from anyone we didn't know extremely well. And I've never accepted an invitation to a warehouse party since. My friend Derek asked me to house sit for him over New Year's weekend while he was visiting his girlfriend's family in Boston. His place was a small house in Tacoma, and he said I could have people over as long as I kept it low-key. I invited maybe 6 friends from work. We had some drinks, watched the ball drop, and everyone left by 1 a.m. It was a quiet night, exactly what I needed after a stressful month at my job. I crashed on Derek's couch around 2 a.m. When I woke up the next morning, I immediately knew something was wrong. The front door was unlocked. I specifically remembered locking it after the last person left, but now the deadbolt was turned and the door was slightly ajar. I walked through the house, checking rooms. Nothing seemed disturbed. Then I went to the kitchen and saw that Derek's laptop was gone from the counter. So was the Bluetooth speaker he kept by the sink. I called him immediately. "Hey man, weird question. Did you take your laptop and speaker with you?" "No, they're both there. Why?" I explained that they were missing and the front door had been unlocked. He went quiet for a second, then said, "Check if my spare key is still on the hook by the door." I walked over to the entryway. There was a small key hook on the wall where Derek kept his spare house key. It was empty. "It's gone," I said. "Shit." Derek's voice had changed. "Okay, that's bad. That means whoever took it can come back." He told me to file a police report and said he'd try to get back early, but he was stuck in Boston until his flight tomorrow night. In the meantime, he said I should either stay somewhere else or get the locks changed immediately. I called a locksmith, but it was New Year's Day and everywhere was closed. The earliest someone could come was tomorrow afternoon. Then I remembered something. Derek had a Ring doorbell. I pulled up the app on my phone and started scrubbing through footage from last night. Most of it was just people arriving and leaving, faces I recognized from the party. But then I saw something around 12:45 a.m. A guy I didn't recognize appeared in the frame. He was in his 30s, wearing a dark hoodie. He wasn't walking up to the door like a guest. He was standing off to the side, partially hidden by the hedge, watching. He stayed there for almost 10 minutes, just watching people leave. At 1:15 a.m., after I'd locked the door and gone to the couch, he walked up to the door. I watched him try the handle. Locked. Then he pulled something out of his pocket. It was hard to see in the darkness, but it looked like he was trying to pick the lock. He worked at it for maybe 30 seconds before giving up. Then at 6:23 a.m., he came back. This time, he didn't try to pick the lock. He just pulled out a key, Derek's spare key, and unlocked the door like he owned the place. The footage showed him walking inside. 4 minutes later, he came back out, carrying the laptop and speaker. But here's what made my stomach drop. Before he left, he carefully locked the door behind him, then used the key to unlock it again, testing it. Then he pocketed the key and walked away. He kept the key, which meant he could come back whenever he wanted. I immediately called Derek again and sent him the footage. He was freaked out, telling me to just leave and stay at my place. But my apartment was 40 minutes away, and something about the idea of just abandoning his house felt wrong. Plus, I was pissed. This guy had stolen Derek's stuff and had a key to his house. If I left, he could come back and clear the place out. I decided to stay, at least until Derek could get back tomorrow night. I spent the afternoon moving furniture. I pushed Derek's heavy couch against the front door. I locked all the windows and checked them twice. I found a baseball bat in the garage and kept it next to me. Around 6 p.m., I ordered food delivery. I was sitting in the living room eating when I heard a car pull up outside. I looked through the window and saw a dark sedan idling in front of the house. The same guy from the footage was in the driver's seat, talking on his phone. He sat there for maybe 5 minutes, just watching the house. Then someone else got in the passenger seat, another guy I didn't recognize. They sat there talking, looking at the house, and my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Then the driver opened his door and started to get out. I grabbed my phone and called 911. "There's someone trying to break into the house I'm staying at," I said, giving them the address. "I have video footage of him stealing a key earlier today. He's outside right now." The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and said officers were on their way. I watched through the window as the guy walked up to the front door. I could hear him trying the key, but the door wouldn't open because of the couch I'd pushed against it. He tried again, harder this time, and I heard him say something to his friend in the car. And then I heard him walk around the side of the house. I followed the sound, moving through the rooms, keeping my eyes on the windows. He was testing them, trying to find one that was unlocked. When he got to the back door, he tried that too, locked. I could hear him talking on his phone now, frustrated, saying something I couldn't make out. Then I heard sirens. The guy ran. I watched him sprint back to the car, and they peeled out just as the police cruiser turned onto the street. 2 officers arrived and I showed them everything. The ring footage from last night, the video of him trying to get in just now, and the list of stolen items. They took a full report and said they'd circulate the footage. One officer stayed outside for the next hour while his partner drove around looking for the car. They never found them. Derek got back the next night and immediately had the locks changed. He also installed 2 more cameras and got a security system. I helped him go through all the footage again, trying to get a clear shot of the guy's face. We sent everything to the police, but as far as I know, they never caught him. The thing that still bothers me is this. I went back through the ring footage from the party and found the moment the key was taken. It was around 11:30 p.m. The guy had come up to the door like he was arriving at the party. Someone had opened the door. I think it was me. And he'd stepped inside just far enough to grab the key off the hook, then immediately turned around and left. The whole thing took maybe 5 seconds. He'd come specifically for that key. He knew it was there. He'd planned the whole thing. And if I hadn't been there when he came back, I don't know what would have happened.